I am Dietmar Doering, engaged in Sri Lanka for the last 37 years and presently the CEO of the Asian German Research Institute. Welcome back to my channel, Make Lanka Great Again. So this version we are comparing Sri Lanka and Vietnam on tourism development. Both countries, they are heavily depending on tourism, and both countries exposed to more or less similar climatical conditions. Both countries are exposed to monsoons. Both countries have similar quantities of rainfalls, and the temperatures are also more or less equal. Both countries were exposed to wars, though Vietnam's US war was much more drastic and with a terrible impact, while Sri Lanka's internal conflict, which also lasted over 30 years, had a relatively less impact on the country. When we are talking about tourism development and we want to do a just and a fair comparison between two countries, then I thought we'll take a period, a time before Corona has impacted. The impact of Corona in Vietnam and in most of the countries of the world, Vietnam and Sri Lanka now in my perspective particularly, both countries had suffered from the impact of the pandemic. So we are looking to a period before 2019. And for Sri Lanka there was another terrible impact which happened from the Zaran bombings in 2018. So we can omit this period as well, because naturally after this Easter bombing, Sri Lanka was facing a terrible drop in tourist arrivals. So when you go back beyond 2018, leaving the present economic situation a little bit to the side, and we compare both countries, Vietnam and Sri Lanka, then we are coming to a very interesting conclusion. Both countries started tourism in the late 1960s. Vietnam, I have the chart here. Vietnam was started, in fact, in 1967. Sri Lanka started in 1967, and we had in Sri Lanka an arrival of 19,000 tourists. The figures in Vietnam during that period not available because they were still engaged with the post-war, with the war in fact. But when we see the annual tourist arrivals in 1990, then Sri Lanka interestingly had an arrival quota of 297,000 tourists and Vietnam 250,000. So in 1990, we take that as an indicator for our tourism situation in Sri Lanka. Both countries around 297 and Sri Lanka 250,000. What happened thereafter? Making a jump to 1995. 1995, annual tourist arrivals in Sri Lanka 414,000. While Vietnam kick-started with 1.3 million tourists. And thereafter, Sri Lanka, and the gap between tourist arrivals between Sri Lanka and Vietnam has widened by the year. 2,445,000 to 2.1 million. And we can carry on further and further, and then the big jump came in 2005. Sri Lanka arrival 669. Vietnam arrival 3.5 million. 2010, Sri Lanka 766. Vietnam 5 million. Sri Lanka 2013 1.4 million. Vietnam 7.5, and so on and so on. And now we make another big jump. We are coming to the year 2018, 2019, so before the pandemic. Sri Lanka's performance in 2018 was 2.5 million. I think that was the highest in the history of tourist arrivals in Sri Lanka. So in the year 2018 in Sri Lanka, 2.5 million. Now guess, in Vietnam, unbelievable number of tourist arrivals, 15.5 million. And the following year, in 2019, we had a drop here due to the Saran bombings, were nearly anyway reaching above 2 million. But in Vietnam, Vietnam has exceeded to a tourist arrival, annual tourist arrival, to 18 million people. So now the question may be justified. Why the two countries have such a big different gap of tourist arrivals? There must be something what Vietnam is doing extremely well when it comes to marketing and tourism development, while Sri Lanka clearly is underperforming, drastically underperforming, and there may be also reasons for that. And since we are engaged here in research work, so going into the details, trying to find the needle in the hay, that's sometimes difficult, but the best reason to find out what are the existing obstacles and why Sri Lanka is so drastically underperforming, I will come out with that now, and with the references what you find here below in my links with hardcore statistics and facts.